One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. This was a direct quote from Neil Armstrong as he walked across the moon on July 20th, 1969. Now, you may know about the man who walked on the moon, but do you know how it all came together? Do you know about Apollo 11 and the history behind it? Well, I am here to tell you. I have done strenuous research from Britannica and History.com to be able to share with you the information that I have received. Now, I am here to tell you about Neil Armstrong and how he became a part of the Apollo 11 mission and the origin of the Apollo 11 mission itself. Now, it's a great place to start with Neil Armstrong and his backstory of how he came to NASA to become an astronaut. So let's start there. In 1947, Neil Armstrong went to Purdue University on a naval scholarship where he was eventually drafted into the Korean War. During his time at the Korean War, he was a fighter pilot and ended up flying 78 missions against the Koreans. When he got home, he was hired by NASA to be a test pilot. While he was a test pilot, he flew 200 different aircrafts and exceeded altitude. However, this did not scratch the itch on Armstrong's back. Instead, he signed up for Apollo 8, and Apollo 8 was the mission to go to Mars. However, he did not make it to Mars and almost died in the process. During this time, he also had a child that died. And during this grief, he decided that he would keep going as an astronaut and was eventually hired to be captain of Apollo 11. Now, many of you may know about Apollo 11, but do you know about the origin and the history of it? During this time period in the 1960s, it was the Cold War. During the Cold War, tensions were high between Soviet Union and America. John F. Kennedy created the Apollo program in efforts to get to the moon before Russia did. Now, Apollo 11 was the first successful mission to the moon where man actually walked on it and could place the American flag on the moon for the whole entire world to see. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins were all a part of this mission. Now, during this mission, it was televised, so everybody around the world could see the man that actually walked on the moon. On July 16th, it took off, and on July 20th, they landed, where Neil Armstrong uttered the famous quote that I cited in the beginning of this speech, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." In summary, the man who walked on the moon has gone down in history as one of the best achievements in history. Neil Armstrong and Apollo 11 will be remembered as the greatest achievements of that time. In this speech, I explained the backstory of Neil Armstrong and the origin of Apollo 11 and how it all came to be. So whenever you see the date of July 20th, you can now think of the day that history was made and how it has impacted our lives today.